Is it finally happening? Is Brandon Aiyuk finally going to become a Pittsburgh Steeler? Are we finally done having to talk about this? Maybe. We'll see. But for right now, there's a pretty big development. But welcome to the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network and our DK Pittsburgh Sports YouTube channel, Steelers YouTube channel. I'm Chris Halicke. Joining me is Greg Macafee. We are taking a break from training camp practice today because, well, there is no training camp practice today. However, there is a massive development.
Yes.
In the Brandon Aiyuk saga, and we have to lead off with that. I'm going to read off pretty much, not exactly. I urge you to go to our Steelers feed on DK Pittsburgh Sports, where I have all of the information, but I will give you at least a couple of graphs from that. The Steelers and 49ers have a deal in place on a potential trade involving Brandon Aiyuk, which I had a team source confirm that to me. NFL Network was first to report it. No, a deal is not done yet. So this is not like, hey, done deal. This is not that. The 49ers still have to sign off on it because they have a contract extension offer out to Brandon Aiyuk in which they would prefer that he accept that and remain a 49er and end this whole thing. However, he has yet to accept that. And if he doesn't, then the 49ers then apparently have a deal in place to possibly like, okay, let's just unload him. Let's trade him. The deal is in place. So, Greg, reaction to this?
I mean, we thought this was going to happen the whole time, right? I mean, we figured like there were here. Hold on. Where's my arrow?
Okay, I wanted to make sure you weren't saying hold on for a reason. Like, oh, go. Do we? Okay, Omar Khan is inevitable. There.
I don't know if I don't. There you go. That's what I wanted to put. Omar Khan is inevitable. It's inevitable. We knew this was going to happen. I mean, it's been brewing up to this point. Kind of my thought process here is that, you know, they've been going back and forth. We knew at some point someone was going to be like, all right, let's just get this done. Let's get it going. Obviously the 49ers want to do their due diligence. They want to make sure they want to take, you know, give one more effort at it, throw him one more contract offer to see if they can bring him back in, because obviously they're one of those teams that's, I would assume, is in the conversation for a Super Bowl this year. And how does it benefit them to get rid of one of their best wide receivers, depending on what they get in return and everything like that. So they want to make sure that, you know, this is the right move for them. But I think the situation might have become so toxic in San Francisco that they're like, all right, let's just get the deal done. Let's see what happens. But obviously, you know, waiting to hear back from Aiyuk on that contract offer. So we'll see how it goes. But, you know, if this gets pushed through, I mean, this is the move that Omar Khan has been wanting to make. This is the move that Steelers fans have been waiting for. This is the move that we've been talking about for, it seems like 2 or 3 months at this point. So, I mean, it seems like this is the closest it's been, if that makes sense.
Yes. And there are some good questions here. And the first one here comes from Lori, who says, not being a jerk, but honest question. And it is an honest question. She asks, how is all that big of a deal when the 49ers haven't actually agreed to the trade? It feels like status quo to me. Well, because the reason why this is a big development is that the hang up here in terms of a trade has been the asking price. Because if that,
Yeah.
Think about how all of this began. This began with the 49ers leaking to the media that they had a framework in place, you know, of a trade with either the Browns or the Patriots. And that if Brandon Aiyuk would have accepted either one of their contract offers, those trades would have been done. If the 49ers would have deemed it being like, okay, fine, we got a trade. We have a deal in place. And if we want to make that trade, boom, all we have to do is pick up the phone and say, okay, deal done. We're sending him your way.
Yeah.
That is where the Steelers are now, because they haven't been there yet. They haven't been to a point in which the 49ers and the Steelers have actually agreed to a deal. So that's why this is a big development, because this entire time, while obviously the Browns and the Patriots were ahead of the Steelers in that regard, the Steelers didn't have that. And all the reports have been coming out of San Francisco have been like the Steelers aren't offering enough. The Steelers or the 49ers don't like what the Steelers are offering. They aren't seeing eye to eye. Well, now they have a deal in place. And if the 49ers can't work anything out with Brandon Aiyuk in terms of a long-term contract offer, then all they have to do is pick up the phone and say, all right, Omar, he's yours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They already have the pieces in place when it comes to a deal now. That is a massive hurdle out of the way because that right there was the biggest hurdle. I reported that all the way back on July 26th, saying that the Steelers were convinced that they were going to be getting a big-time receiver and that the main hurdle in the way was going to be the asking price. It wasn't going to be the contract that they have to work out with Aiyuk or anything else like that. It was going to be working out the trade compensation with the 49ers or any other team that they were going to try to trade for. And lo and behold, that has been the thing that has drugged this thing out until today, that we finally get a breakthrough in terms of, okay, that's no longer a hurdle now. Now it is if the 49ers finally want to say, all right, we tried everything we possibly could to work this out with Brandon. It's not working out. Now we can trade him.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, I mean, we've all known how Omar Khan has a knack for being one of the most patient general managers in the NFL. And I think that's been the case this entire time of him just, he's going to throw out there what he's willing to give up. If the 49ers don't want to match that, it is what it is. And I think the ball has always been in San Francisco's court. It's, they can, they can offer the money to Aiyuk. He can give, he can take it. He can, but obviously he's the situation has been where, he wants to get paid. And obviously the Steelers they've shown the willingness to pay him. The deal was, out there. They were trying to, come to a conclusion on that. And now that's in place. It seems like the contract is in place as well, or, roughly in place. And now it's just waiting. The ball is back in San Francisco's court, just waiting to see, what they decide to do.
Yeah, I haven't gotten actual confirmation. I know some other people have. I haven't gotten actual confirmation that a contract between the Steelers and Aiyuk is like pretty much agreed upon. Yeah. I don't have anything like that, but I have heard enough that that's not going to be an issue, and then that they'll be able to work that out pretty seamlessly, pretty quickly. That the contract between the Steelers and Aiyuk, should a trade actually happen, isn't going to be any kind of issue here. That the trade itself has been the thing that's been standing in the way. And right now, there are two parts of it. They have to agree to terms, and then they have to actually execute the trade. They've agreed to terms now. Now all it is taking one phone call for the 49ers to say, all right, it's done. Yeah. That also leads to what a lot of people have asked, but I'm going to highlight Rico here for the $20 contribution here. Which, thank you very much, Rico, for that. What will they have to give up, do you think? Well, I'm telling you right now, anything that we say on here is speculation because I don't know. There's been nothing reported out there. There's been a lot of stuff out there reported about the 49ers were asking for 2 first-round picks. They've asked for Minkah Fitzpatrick. They've asked for George Pickens. They've asked for Pat Freiermuth. There's a lot of different things that are out there about what each team is either willing to give up or what the 49ers are asking for, whatever it is. We don't know what's actually part of this deal that they've agreed upon, whether that is a second and a third, a first rounder straight up, whatever it is. It's all speculation at this point because that stuff is not known by me or anybody else that's actually put it out there saying, unless somebody else comes out right now, like Ian Rappaport or anybody else from NFL Network or anything, says a Steelers second round pick in 2025 is definitely part of this deal. Nobody's come out and said that yet. So that's the answer to that question. So now we can kind of speculate. What do we think? What do we think is part of this deal if a trade were to take place?
Well, I mean, throughout our conversations of talking about this, we've always thrown the idea out there of James Daniels in a first. That's been one of the main trade, pieces we've kind of speculated. And over the last few days, I'm just throwing this out there to, kind of piece the puzzle together a little more. Over the last few days, we've seen Nate Herbig when Zach Frazier gets in at center. We've seen Nate Herbig slide into James Daniels' spot. So there's that to go along with it. That's the main, I guess, trade compensation we've kind of talked about. There have been rumors out there that the 49ers wanted a wide receiver in return, and I think that's why George Pickens and Patrick Freiermuth were thrown into that conversation because they wanted something back. What if it's like a James Daniels, a Calvin Austin, and a first or a second or something like that?
I don't think that's
yeah,
happening.
yeah. I'm just saying,
Right.
if they're looking
Yeah.
for a wide receiver, you look at guys like, I would think, Calvin Austin. But obviously, again, that's speculation.
Yeah, I've seen stuff out there, and I can't actually confirm this, but I've seen stuff out there that the Steelers don't want to give up any players.
We've seen that as
Now,
well. Yeah.
whether that ends up actually happening, I do think that Omar Khan isn't going to go past a certain threshold for in a trade, and so maybe that's the one thing. Like maybe it's either a first round pick or maybe it's no players. I don't know what it is. If there are any players involved, I can almost guarantee, and this is without any confirmation, but I can almost guarantee that it will not involve George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, or Minka Fitzpatrick. It's not going to involve any of those guys.
No shot.
If I had to guess, like a player that is involved, James Daniels to me is the one that makes the most amount of sense. And if it's not James Daniels, maybe, and I highly, highly doubt this. So before I even put the name out there, I'm gonna seriously put, like, I don't think this is gonna happen, but maybe Nick Herbig, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason why I even say that is because obviously the 49ers would love to have another edge rusher, and obviously Nick is not a starter right now because they have TJ and Alex Highsmith. But I don't think that that's going to happen. Again, I would think if Omar Khan really is going to end up having his way in this trade, I don't think any players are involved, and I don't think that it is going to involve a first-round pick. And in my opinion, anything else after that, it's a win. I would do a first-rounder straight up for Brandon Aiyuk, like me personally.
Yeah, no, I think that would.
And Mark
make sense.
says hard pass. And Mark says hard pass and giving up Nick. I agree. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, and I mean, and then especially with like Marcus Golden retiring, and they're still trying to build that depth at outside linebacker. If they had like 2 or 3 guys behind him that might have been ready to go, I would say let's throw him in there. But I think Omar Khan is operating from a place of depth and everything like that. So I mean, I think that's why we've thrown James Daniels in the conversation. Over the last couple weeks of talking about this trade. I think Nick Herbig would be, out of the conversation, but I mean, I also think that's why, Omar's not willing to give up any players. They're still trying to figure out the depth of this roster and everything like that. So, that's just how it's going right now.
Yeah, I don't, and the Ted Bear here says, Najee is from the Bay Area, just saying 2 last year rookie contract trade deal. Najee's not going to be part of this either. Najee's not part of it. It also doesn't make a lot of sense for the 49ers to get Najee because, number one, they have the best running back in football in Christian McCaffrey. And that'd be a nice piece to have behind McCaffrey and great insurance for if McCaffrey were to go down. But the Steelers aren't about to trade their strength of the offense. In terms of like they have a legitimate 1-2 punch with Najee and Jalen. They're not about to just part with that. And then it doesn't make much sense for the 49ers to take on a guy who's on an expiring rookie contract whenever they just paid, $19 million a year for Christian McCaffrey. I understand James Daniels is on an expiring contract, but James Daniels at least bolsters their offensive line now and helps the 49ers try to win a Super Bowl now.
Yeah.
And they could always try to lock him up and try to keep him. But either way, it helps their offensive line now while they can try to figure out the pieces when it comes to, the receiver position. And the other part of this, because there continue to be questions about what the offer is, I also don't want to rule out the fact that this could be a 3-team trade either.
Yeah. That's always a possibility.
There could be either a third team involved or the 49ers. Maybe it is just a Steelers 49ers trade. And then the 49ers already have something in the works with what they would be getting from the Steelers in order to get a receiver from somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like those conversations have been flying throughout the course of the weekend. That, obviously with San Francisco in the conversation to go and compete for a Super Bowl, they don't necessarily just want picks back. I think that's why they wanted players back, someone that can contribute to their run this season, and getting a wide receiver makes sense in that. Which is why a third team came up. Obviously, the Steelers are in a position where they can't really give a wide receiver in return, or wouldn't want to give a tight end like Pat Freiermuth in return. So the 49ers got to go somewhere else to find that. I mean, obviously there are probably a couple teams around the league that might be willing to listen, but it's the whole situation is kind of up in the air.
Yeah. The one thing, and Corey here says, I hope it's a second and James Daniels. We need the first for a possible quarterback or receiver. Again, if I'm a betting man, I'm betting that Omar Khan isn't willing to give up a first round pick.
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
That's kind of what I was saying earlier with when I mentioned like James Daniels, Calvin Austin, and like a second or third or something like that. Like I was thinking, that first is something that we need to hold on to for possibly next year, say to draft a quarterback if Russ or Justin Fields don't work out, something like that. That's kind of where my head was going with it.
Yeah. And Cecil here, saying San Francisco been playing so many games, leaking stuff, the Steelers not falling for the BS. Listen, I think if anything, if there's anybody leaking anything here, this might be the Steelers' attempt to try to leak something.
Yeah.
To, get, they're in a waiting game right now, and they're pretty much saying, okay, we have a deal in place here.
Brandon Aiyuk hears that, and he's like, all right, well, I'm picking between money or where I want to go play.
Yeah. But because listen, like if the 49ers have an offer out to Aiyuk and he doesn't like it, he doesn't want to accept it, then what happens at this point? What happens at this point?
Yeah.
Do the 49ers just finally say, fine, whatever, let's just get rid of it. Let's just be done with this entire situation. And Lori says it here. I'm not going to put it up there because it's just for words and stuff, but it's, crap or get off the pot. And that's what like I said, if anybody's leaking anything when it comes to this situation, it might be the Steelers leaking something just because
they're putting the situation out there. Yeah.
Right. They want to be like, okay, we're fine continuing to wait it out. But now, you put pressure on us a couple times now. Now it's our turn to put a little bit of pressure on. When it comes to that 3-team trade here, Chris B71 does here say 3-team trades are incredibly difficult in the NFL, which is why I do think that I don't think it's necessarily a 3-team trade, but this could be a situation in which, okay, if the 49ers want a receiver and they're not going to get one from the Steelers, they might already have something else in the works if this trade goes through that they could just turn around and use picks to get a receiver.
Yeah.
There was a couple of other things that were said here that I wanted to try to get to. Rico here comes up with a $5 contribution and asks, what about the cap? Well, that's a good question because, the Steelers have a good amount of cap space. They have $16 million in cap space, according to overthecap.com. And Brandon Aiyuk's 5th-year option is $14.1 million. And so just if they do give up just draft picks, if this trade were to go through, then they're still under the cap. Now, just because his 5th-year option is $14.1 million doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it's going to end up being once they sign the contract extension. Maybe that's what it is, and maybe they just, he plays under what's the 5th-year option or for the same amount, but then, the rest of the years for the contract, whether it's 3 more years, 4 more years, whatever it is, maybe those end up being the more expensive years. Who knows? But they have plenty of cap space now. They can also restructure other contracts. There are other things that they can do to create even more cap space. And of course, if they do part with a player, for example, I will pull up just really quick. I'll go ahead and pull up James Daniels' contract. And if James Daniels is part of the trade, I don't think he is, but if he is part of the trade, let's see, what's his cap hit for this year? His cap hit in 2024 is, drum roll, $11.16 million. That clears a bunch of cap space.
Yeah.
Now, I do think there might be something the Steelers would still have to retain out of that. I'd have to look at all that, but either way, they would be sending some money. They would be clearing some other money if they were to involve that. So, Either way, they have plenty of cap space to get it done. And they can also restructure other contracts. Let's see. Swan269 says all this drama on Hard Knocks. I don't know if this stuff might make it to actually make it to Hard Knocks because it's taking place so early. Because remember, the Steelers. Go ahead.
It's like the end of it's at like the end of the season. So it's like it's those like they're not necessarily live, but they're during the final 6 weeks of the season, I think it is. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I want to say it's something like that. It starts to air like around Thanksgiving or just after Thanksgiving, something like that.
But I know when we talked to Tomlin at the beginning of training camp, like they hadn't even had any like meetings or conversations about it yet or anything like that. So it's definitely still in the works.
Yeah. That's Biet asks, how long do you think an Aiyuk extension would be for if the trade happens? My initial reaction is to just say that he's going to get a 4-year deal. Like he will be under contract for the next 4 years. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So whether that is a brand new contract that pretty much makes the 5th-year option void, or if it's 3 years beyond this year, I think he's under contract. He would be under contract for 4 years. I think that's what they'd be aiming for. And of course that begs the question of, if that trade happens, what happens with George Pickens? Do they not sign? Because shoot, man, they've already got, other guys that they possibly need to work out extensions with. Pat Freiermuth, Cam Hayward, Najee Harris, possibly Jalen Warren's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the season.
Quarterback.
So they got other guys. Yeah, quarterback. Man. Shoot, man. I didn't even talk about the quarterback. You got either, decisions possibly on Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, either one of those two guys. Like there are a lot of options that they would have to go through and make decisions on. Shoot, man, I don't know if they would even want to even entertain the possibility of wanting to sign George Pickens. They might just be fine with running with Brandon Aiyuk and George for 2 years and be like, all right, that's a sick 1-2 punch. Yeah. And let's see what happens. But I think they have plenty of other things that they would have to worry about. But if they get all that stuff done and taken care of next summer, that's going to be heading into George's last year under contract. So that will be a topic of conversation next summer for sure. Let's see. Anything else? A question here. Any word on Big Cam's contract? There are no updates when it comes to any internal extension talks, whether that is with Cam or Freiermuth or Najee or anybody else. No decisions yet, or the quarterback.
Do you think that has a lot to do with this current situation with Brandon Aiyuk? They're waiting to see kind of how the
Yes. The fact that I learned that they were convinced that they were going to be getting a big time receiver pretty much at the outset of training camp. Told me that they were prioritizing. Now I didn't actually hear this, but I'm just trying to put 2 and 2 together here, that they were prioritizing the pursuit of a big time receiver, of landing a big time receiver. And then once they get it done, which is maybe that's why they're tired of the waiting game. Because they want to move on. They have other guys they need to figure out. And then, shoot, that's a lot easier to do whenever they're back on the south side. Not that they can't work out contracts in Latrobe. They have before. They did it with Deontay a couple of years ago. But, it's just a little easier because, they're kind of back home at that point. Omar's in his office. Mike Tomlin's in his office. The players are in their locker room, That's where they,
they're comfortable.
It's way more comfortable than it is in Latrobe. So, but maybe that's why we're finally coming to an end on this one way or the other. Whether this actually ends up becoming a trade or not, maybe that's why, because they also need to figure out what they're going to do with these other guys. But I do know that signing either Russ or Justin Fields to an extension before the season is not going to be happening.
No.
And they don't do extension talks during the season. So those two guys are going to play out the final years of their contract, and then they'll make a decision at the end of the season what they're going to do with either one of them.
Yeah.
So here we go. Let's get to some questions maybe that are not Brandon Aiyuk related, but of course we want That's kind of the theme of today, given the news that's happened. Richard asks, can we get an upgrade from KZ? He's very ordinary. How about Justin Simmons? Well, Justin Simmons has been visiting with other teams. I know he met with the Saints. I think there was another team that he was meeting with here recently. I don't remember who it was. But he is meeting with other teams. I don't think that ends up happening, to be completely honest. I haven't heard anything about it, at least. Of course, I do think that a lot of the attention has been on, this Brandon Aiyuk stuff. And so I first off, when it comes to DeMonte Casey, he is the third safety. When we're talking about just safeties, we're not talking about who's strong, who's free, anything like that. I don't think I know that KZ is not the number 2 safety. Deshaun Elliott is. Whenever they are in their basic 3-4 defense, it's going to be Minka and Deshaun out there. Those are the 2 safeties. Whenever they have a 3 safety package, then yes, KZ will be out there. And I'm not saying that there won't ever be times that KZ gets reps, in a typical 2 safety package, but in terms of the preferred safety duo, it is Minka and Deshaun Elliott.
Yeah.
So, let's see here. Alex asks, any more info on the Golden retirement? Why say you want to play than wanting to retire? I mean, shoot, man, they kind of took us all by surprise, and there hasn't been anything to talk about. Shoot, man, Mike Tomlin hasn't even said anything about it. Or if he did, did he say anything about it Sunday? Because
he talked about it on after the game on Friday. He was asked slightly about it, and he said he kind of generalized it. He didn't really dive into detail, but he said if your mind's not in it, it's probably not the right decision. And we do have to remember that Marcus Golden came back. I believe his first practice, maybe his second practice, was Friday Night Lights at Latrobe,
and it was too.
And it was a physical one. So I mean, if maybe something happened, because I don't think he practiced after that. I think that was his last practice. So I mean, something might have happened. It was
very light. Yeah,
I don't know. So something might have happened there where his his body was just like can't do it anymore. And that made the decision for him. But I mean, nothing but good things. People have said nothing but good things about him, over the last week or so. I never got to interact with him. DK spoke very highly of him. Chris, you said he was a great interview for what you had with him. I mean, it's just when you don't have it in you anymore, it's a tough thing to do.
When PR glows about a player and how they interact with the media, that guy is a good guy to talk to. And that's not just because he always says the right things. No, he's just really good when it comes to how they interact with the media in terms of being fair, in terms of being available. There's a reason why there's a Chief Award that we vote on as writers, because, it's important, and the team understands too that it's important that we get to talk to these guys, and Marcus Golden being pretty much from everything that I've heard, it's all been glowing stuff. Pretty much being a beacon or a great example of what that is, of being a guy who's always available to talk and gives great answers, and it's just those are good guys to have. Mason Cole was like that too. It's not always the best player on the field, but sometimes it's just it's a guy who talks really well and is always cooperative, and Marcus Golden was one of those guys. And so that would have been great to have for the Steelers. It would have been great to have the same foursome they had last year with TJ and Alex as the starters, and then Marcus and Herbig as the 2 who can come in. That would have been great. But that's just not where they are, and they're going to have to move on from that. Mark says, I hear Corey Trice is being real competitive and pleasing coaches. How true are these reports? Greg, what's going on with Corey Trice?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to him in the last 2 practices, and he seemed like he was still he's fine physically. He said he's pretty much 100%. He's getting more confident with the defense and everything like that. I asked him if there was anything he was working on. He said his footwork, which kind of makes sense. There was times he got beat in practice. On Sunday, there was one crossing right across the middle that he kind of, he got beat on by Quez Watkins. But he's been solid though. He's covering a lot of guys. He's benefiting from the reps that he's gotten with Dante Jackson sitting out the past 2 practices. So he's been solid. I think he's definitely rising the depth chart, I would say. At the beginning of training camp, people were asking about him, and Chris and I were like, we haven't seen him out there very much. But ever since about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, maybe, he started to get more reps and he's taking advantage of them. He's looked pretty good. He's a long, lengthy guy. So there's definitely potential there. But yeah, he's been looking good. He's kind of been a little bit up and down, but I think that comes with just getting that familiarity with the defense and working out the footwork issues that he said he had, things like that. But yeah, he's been solid.
I need you to nothing's breaking here when it comes to a trade, but I need you to take over the chat. I'm updating something in the feed, and then I will let you guys know.
Okay. So as far as, let's see here, what else? As far as the outside linebackers go, we got a question from Richard. So obviously, Terrell Austin talked on Sunday. One of the questions he talked about was the outside linebackers. One of the questions he answered was outside linebackers. Obviously, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith are the 2 that lead that group. Nick Herbig Austin said he's taken a step forward, so he's definitely solidified that 3rd spot. And I think they're still working out for that 4th spot. I don't know if Jeremiah Moon is necessarily the favorite for that 4th spot. They talked a lot about DeMarvin Leal, who's played a little bit out there. And obviously that's not his natural position. He plays more inside, but obviously with this roster, special teams, everything, we've talked about it a bunch. Versatility is a huge thing with this roster, and Austin has been pleasantly surprised and pleasantly satisfied with Leal's versatility and his play, his ability to kind of bounce all over the place. So I think that 4th spot is still kind of up in the air. I don't know if Jeremiah Moon would necessarily be the favorite for it, but I think that he's definitely in the conversation.
Okay, I got a development here in terms of, and I just put it in our
I filled up enough time.
I just put it in our Steelers feed. And so if you have the DK Pittsburgh Sports app, which if you don't get it, it's free. And I just sent an alert out too. So if anybody who got the alert, the Steelers offer in this deal does not include a 1st-round pick. Confirmed by a team source.
And that offer that deal is in place, correct?
They are not offering a first. Yes, that is not offering. It is not offering a 1st-round pick. No, don't know what it does include, but it does not include a 1st-round pick. And I was just told that. Literally got a text right as in the middle of the show. So
interesting.
That is the. So there you go. There's that right there. No 1st-round pick in this deal. And JD here says, not surprised. I'm not surprised about it either, but it's one thing to speculate. It's another thing to know that whether it includes a 1st-round pick, does not include that's BSS. I think you wrote it wrong in the feed. Now I need to check. Now you're going to have me check for this, man. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, I did write it wrong in the feed. Thank you very much. It was supposed to be does not include a 1st-round pick. See, look at this. I have people who are helping me out.
Copy editors in the comments. Love to have
right?
it.
This is amazing. Does not include a 1st-round pick. Boom.
That's
okay.
Good.
There we go. Does not include a 1st-round pick. Good Lord. This is what happens when you try to do a live podcast and report at the same time. And you're trying to produce it. We are literally producing our own show, doing it live, and reporting at the same time.
That's how we do it here at DK.
This is why men are constantly blamed for not being able to multitask, because there is actually some validity to that, statement. So, Matthew says, I don't get notifications on the app anymore. Maybe delete the app and then reinstall it.
Yep.
That typically fixes a lot of issues. So, But yeah, so no first round pick in this deal for Brandon Aiyuk. Yeah, if the trade does go through, no first round pick. So there you go.
That's good value. I mean, depending on what they give up, as far as if they give up any players, I will say if, because we don't know that yet. We just know that there's no, there's no first round picks involved. But yeah, I think not giving up a first round pick for a wide receiver like Brandon Aiyuk is good.
Yes, 100%. I mean, yes. I mean, because for me, like I said, if I'm a GM now, granted, I could say if I'm a GM, there's a reason why I'm not. I'm just not a GM, and I would be fired so quickly. But for me, I would do immediately like Brandon Aiyuk for a 1 straight up. I would do it. Straight up. Like if it's literally nothing else involved, I would do it 100%, because I think Brandon Aiyuk is worthy of a first round pick. But that's why I'm not an NFL GM, and that's why I would be fired so quickly, because I would end up making too many of those type deals.
We've played too much Madden in our lives, Chris. That's what it is.
True. I've got to up my game.
You flip the first round picks for the best players.
So I haven't had a chance to play the new college football game yet, but as soon as I do, I'm really gonna have to figure out a way to try to rehone my my recruiting skills, because I have a feeling like I'm gonna be so bad at recruiting. So yeah. But that's why I say, like, I would give up a 1 for Brandon Aiyuk, but Omar Khan might hear that and just laugh and be like, yeah, no way. Yeah. That's stupid. But hey, if they don't give up a first round pick and they give up, maybe a player, or if it's just a second and a third, or a second and a fourth, whatever the deal is, man. Like, I think if there are no players involved and no first rounders involved, I think that's a win. That's a win. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts before we get, because I need to really get on top of stay on top of this stuff, because I've already proven that trying to report and do a live podcast are not the best thing.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts on this whole Brandon Aiyuk saga? Is this finally coming to an end today? Is it going to get done?
So, all right. So here's the question to ask. How long do you think it takes to look over a contract and decide if you want to, make millions and millions of dollars, or move to a new team and make millions and millions of dollars?
Yeah,
because that's what it's waiting on, right? Like, we're waiting on Brandon Aiyuk to make a decision if he wants to stay in San Francisco and play with the 49ers, or if he wants to, basically sign off on this trade and come to Pittsburgh, which he's hinted at,
Yes, he definitely has. I mean, shoot, like he went out on Instagram and said, like, in a comment, saying like the 49ers are in the media. It's down to 1 of 2 options. And he didn't say this, but it's pretty much pay me or trade me. And right now, the only trade partner they have is the Steelers. And so it's 1 of 2. And so he might look at that contract and be like, no. And if that comes out somehow, whether he comes out and says it himself, or, it's reported by NFL Network or ESPN or wherever else it's reported that Brandon's not agreeing to that offer, and that becomes public, what do the 49ers do at that point?
Yeah.
Do they continue to hold on? Do they continue to just drag this thing out, or do they finally just say, fine, we have the deal in place. Omar, here's your dude. Here's your guy. Take him. Good riddance. Like, do they finally say that? I don't know if it. I don't know if it ends up happening today, but this is obviously a big development in terms of the Steelers, because, as we said earlier, biggest hurdle of this is out of the way now.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many rumblings last week where it felt like it might have been like on the doorstep, but it seems like it's been closer. It's closer now than it's ever been, especially if there's a deal in place.
Yes. All right. Final question here, because it's a good one that we didn't get to. So definitely wanted to get this. So the Ted Bear asks,
Yeah.
are the Steelers even allowed to talk to Brandon Aiyuk before a trade? Yes. The 49ers granted Aiyuk and his agent permission to speak with 4 different teams, which were the Steelers, the Commanders, the Patriots, and the Browns. Now, the Commanders haven't been part of this trade situation for a long time. Not surprising. And also the 49ers, from what I heard, do not want to trade within the NFC, which is unsurprisingly, the other 3 teams are in the AFC. Now, Aiyuk already turned down the contract offers that the Browns and Patriots offered. And from what was reported, the Patriots offered him $32 million a year. So that goes to show that it's not just about the money.
Yeah.
Because if he were just about the money, he'd be a Patriot right now because they're offering him the most money. Because I can almost guarantee you the Steelers are not offering him $32 million a year. I don't even think they're going to offer him $30 million a year. I don't know what the exact number is. I've heard 28's out there. But I don't think there's an old Dan Rooney rule that you don't hire a guy, you don't acquire a guy and make him the highest paid player immediately.
Yeah.
And TJ Watt's contract has just over 28 million average annual value, and his cap hit over the next 2 seasons is just over 30. So that's probably your ballpark, because I highly doubt he'll make more than TJ Watt. So yes, to answer the question long, I'm trying to give you as much context as possible too. Yes, they were allowed to speak, which is why the contract between the Steelers and Aiyuk was never really the biggest concern here, should a trade actually go through.
Yeah.
So, all righty. We're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys were awesome. This was probably one of our most viewed shows, which, obviously given the news, understandable, but hope you had a great time. Hope, you come back again. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching and for interacting. Really quick. Sorry, just another quick question here. Trevor says, so we just need Aiyuk to say yes to the deal, correct? Aiyuk has already said that he could see himself playing for the Steelers, and he said that publicly. The Steelers are obviously a destination he wants to be a Steeler should he be traded. That's why I'm saying that the contract situation between the Steelers and Aiyuk is not the problem here. They will work something out. So that's why if the Steelers and 49ers have something in place, the 49ers are just waiting to hear back from Brandon Aiyuk. Can we possibly work something out here? That's what we would prefer to work out. If not, then a trade could happen.
Yeah.
So, yes, technically Aiyuk has to say yes, because the Steelers then wouldn't give up the capital to get him, which is why the Patriots and Browns didn't acquire him. So, yes. All righty. And Rick says here, yes. Well, he'll have to say no to the final SF deal.
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
So, all righty. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much. We will be back. Well, I will be back tomorrow on the south. No, not on the south side. I will be at St. Vincent College for the final day of training camp. Will it actually be talking about practice? Will we get a chance to talk about practice, or will we continue to talk about Brandon Aiyuk?
Do you think Mike Tomlin announces it isn't there a 9 a.m. press conference tomorrow? You think he announces it there? I don't know. Is he talking tomorrow?
I don't know if he's talking tomorrow or Thursday. I don't know if he would want to. If I'm guessing, they might schedule the press conference for the morning of Thursday, like Thursday morning before the joint practice, because that way he doesn't have to talk after the joint practice.
That makes sense.
knowing the way Mike Tomlin likes to work things.
Yeah.
He won't then have, because he's already addressed the media for the day, so he won't have to go after the joint practice and answer questions then.
It's a good point. It's a smart move.
So I would think, I'm thinking Thursday morning. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
So, but that would be an interesting time. Imagine if the trade goes down either today or tomorrow, and then they can announce it or fly him in or whatever. And then that press conference is like a gigantic hybrid of Mike Tomlin previewing the Bills and here's Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll catch you guys in a flippity flip. We'll see you later.
See you later, guys.